Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features X-Men Volume 2, number 38, cover dated November 1994. So a striking cover image here, very designy by Andy Kubert, inked by Matthew Ryan, of Gambit, his coat in shreds, his costume in shreds, standing over a defeated Sabretooth, making ready with his modified bow staff to cut Sabretooth's throat, and we have the caption Vengeance. So this picks up somewhat from issue 34 before the Phalanx Covenant storyline, and we're going to see that rivalry between Gambit and Sabretooth, an old rivalry picked up on in this particular issue. So let's open this one up to the first page. This is the new deluxe format for the comic. So we've got glossy pages, and it really shows off the art well, both the line art and also the computer coloring. And so we can see there reflected in the plaque for the Xavier Institute for Higher Learning, the reflections there of Scott, Professor X and Jean. So great art throughout this issue by Andy Kubert and Matthew Ryan. So also the book is bookended by a prologue and an epilogue, all of which takes place outside the X-Mansion and looking at this particular sign. So we've got Scott and Jean there, and they're reflecting on that it's nice, Jean says, that after some of the things we've been through, we can come home to find so many good things happening. It's as if our wedding was a breath of fresh air for all of us. So the wedding took place in X-Men number 30, of course. And Professor X himself says, even with the problems we still face, I would agree, our directions and the goals we strive towards can certainly be seen in a more positive light. So Scott makes a joke there, a dry joke, easy for you to say. Your schedules include a training session with Psylocke and cleaning up the ready room while I'm stuck guarding Sabretooth during his daily exercise routine. So we'll see more of that through the issue. So then we have this device running through the issue as well, where we get these captions with the name or code name of a character and a little spot illustration of them in a circle. So here it's Beast. I like that version of him there by Andy Kubert. And Beast is here working on the legacy virus. He's using the data that Jean and Scott brought from their time in the future, and he is having a bit of a breakthrough. So he's celebrating there. I did it. Yes, I'm a genius. But he sighs then and says, who's kidding whom, Henry? All you've done is determine that this particular killer disease is far deadlier than we first feared. According to the comparison charts of the collated information gathered on all current and past victims of legacy, our little pal, the viroid, has evolved into at least 3 distinct manifestations. So the Beast uses some very technical scientific terminology regarding viruses and their mutation in this issue, and we'll see in the credits that there was a couple of research assistants who provided Fabian Nicieza the correct terminology for Beast's dialogue in this piece. Also, I want to note here, and you can see it yourself on these 2 pages, that there aren't too many in the way of narrative, third-person narrative captions throughout this issue, and I like that. So there's much more focus on dialogue between characters throughout. And this is one of the kind of what we might call a bit of a quiet issue, an issue where characters get to catch their breath between large crossovers like Phalanx Covenant, upcoming Legion Quest, and then ultimately it's around the corner, folks, Age of Apocalypse. So outside the lab you've got Bobby Drake, and he is inviting the Beast out to the pool, and he says, come on Hank, the only break you've taken in the last 3 weeks was to take that Espinosa kid over to the Academy. So that's a reference to the previous issue of Uncanny X-Men number 318 that also came out this month of November 94. I know what you're working on is important, Hank, Bobby says, but you've got to slow down. Be a part of the living for a couple of hours. And then more quietly as he heads down the staircase sides, I could sure use someone to talk to right about now. And I like, you can see here too that we've got this different possibility now with the digital lettering as well. So we've got the familiar uppercase lettering here for Bobby's overt piece of dialogue, and then we've got lowercase for his quieter tone. And that wasn't possible in the old comic format so much when it was on newsprint, because this kind of lettering was too indistinct, and you needed the capital lettering for clarity. So they're able to do things now because of the digital coloring and lettering, and also the glossy paper as well. So Beast thinks to himself that he knows, he's sorry. He knows about Bobby's problems as Iceman lately. That has to do with his body being taken over by Emma Frost in issue 314 of Uncanny X-Men. But he's really focused on cracking the legacy virus. So then again, we've got that little device of the little spot illustration of Rogue. Looks really well. And of course, her code name. At this point, we don't know her real name. It's good to note that too. And she's dipping her toe in the water of the pool, and we've got the reflection there. And again, a good use of the computer coloring and the glossy paper. Really nice work, excuse me, by both Andy Kubert and Matt Ryan, and our colorist, who will turn out to be Kevin Summers, because they've kept the credits for the very end of this issue, so we don't get them up front. I really like this page. This is a great page. I like the use of the shadow on Rogue's forearm here as she's climbing up the ladder to the diving board. We've got Bobby's already out in the inflatable tube, looking up at her as she's about to dive off the platform, and she says, "Keep your practical jokes to yourself, Bobby Drake." So we're going to see, he's got a smile on his face, whether he's going to indeed do that or not. And then he's complaining there about, you know what it's like to have, he asks rhetorically, you know what it's like to have a voice inside your head as a constant reminder of what a mess your life is. And who's he asking that question to, except Rogue, who played host for quite some time with the voice of Carol Danvers in her head. Look at that. That is a tremendous illustration of Rogue diving off the diving board. You can even see the board reverberating there in the back of the shot. And this great kind of a fisheye angle as well in the perspective with the curving of the forest and the clouds there. And again, great combination of everything here. The inkline art, the digital coloring, even the sound effect, just great design and great drawing by Andy Kubert. Like, he's really stepped up in the past year, and it just shows on the page. And also he's got, and I've been pointing it out, this new way of drawing eyes as well. So he's moving away from that Jim Lee imitation that he was doing on his very earliest issues of the series, when he practically took over from Jim Lee after Jim left to co-found Image. Anyway, Bobby Drake, he's a joker, yes. He turns the surface of the pool to ice, so she collapses into it, and he's there enjoying the joke. But for how long, eh? Well, this is another great panel of Rogue emerging from the ice, dripping wet and really angry, where she says that she's just going to let him live rather than kill him, since everyone knows just being you is punishment enough. So Bobby there says that was a low blow, and she says, maybe you deserve it, Bobby. She says that she's been through what he has every day of her life. She knows how lost he feels inside, how his mind's scrambled, his confidence shot. But she says to him, you've got one big advantage that she doesn't. You can do something about it. You can control your powers. So don't hide your problems, Bobby, she says to him. Deal with them. So he shoots back at her that he meant it as a joke, and maybe he's not the one she's really mad at. Maybe, just maybe, we both should be taking a long, hard look in the mirror. It's no secret you and Gambit are having problems, and we've all noticed how miserable that's made the two of you. And that's since she was inadvertently touched by a reflex of Belladonna in the Gambit miniseries. You can check that out in issue 3 of the miniseries. The review of that is here on the channel. And Bobby continues, he says, so let's do ourselves and each other a favour, Rogue. I'll work on my problems. if you work out yours, deal. But we don't get her answer as she walks away. That's a great drawing of Rogue. And also, Andy Kubert drawing her with really long legs as well. But it looks good. And nice use of chiaroscuro shading, black and white here on the rendering of Rogue. And then we pick up with Psylocke and Jean Grey, who are having a training session. Of course, Psylocke's powers have been restored since the death of Quanon, and Quanon transferred her portion of Psylocke's powers via Matsuo Tsurayaba in issue 33. You can see that again via review video here on the channel. This is a great shot of a reflection of Psylocke in the blade of her katana sword, and they're on the astral plane fighting. So you can see that here with the psychedelic background. And also something interesting to note is that Psylocke's had a haircut too, and Psylocke apologizes for her little flirtation with Scott. She puts it down to how she was influenced by Quanon's more sensuous presence in her mind. But she also says the truth is that she did find Scott to be very attractive. So Fabian Nicieza wrapping up that plot point that goes all the way back to Jim Lee's original take on the title up to issue 11. And Jean responds here, well, I guess I can't be mad about that since I married the guy. But that fact does help me to understand your personality a little better, which makes it easier for me to try and do this. And she gets the better of Psylocke in the astral realm scenario that they're fighting on telepathically. And also there you get a good look at Psylocke's new haircut. And Jean even makes reference to it. She says that, they're having a little back and forth here about how Psylocke felt so alive when Quanon was a part of her. Quanon being that Japanese assassin and that kind of warrior woman aspect she enjoyed so much more of what I wanted to be. And that goes all the way back to Claremont's characterization of Psylocke when he brought her into the X-Men universe, all the way back in Uncanny X-Men 211 and 212, the Morlock Massacre issues. And, you know, interesting that I think of the Morlock Massacre and Psylocke's original characterization there, and the fact that she battles Sabretooth, because all of that's going to get picked up on very indirectly in the coming Gambit segment on the next page. But back here, Psylocke continues saying, you know, she wanted to be confident, reckless, the dangerous type, you know. And Jean says, the type who chops off 10 inches of hair at once. I thought it was time I mentioned the change. And Psylocke says, I actually did that because I was tired of seeing Warren with better hair than mine. So we're going to see more of Psylocke and Warren Worthington, who have become an item in the next issue of Uncanny X-Men 319. So stay tuned for that video review. And then I really like this shot of Cyclops, who's come to the Danger Room. And I like the way that Andy Kubert here has silhouetted out a certain portion of his upper torso and arm there. Looks really well, but keeping the color on, the detail on of aspects of his costume, the gloves, and of course his visor as well. It looks really good. And he says, girls, ladies, I meant ladies. Is it all right if we use the Danger Room now? If you're done, I mean. And they have a little laugh to themselves. Because they said, amen, what would we do without them? Maintain our sanity, perhaps. So they've bonded over that little joke at Scott's expense. And then we pick up with the Gambit segment, and he's watching Sabretooth in the Danger Room. Scott here has set up a scenario for Sabretooth, and it's designed so that he'll work up a sweat, but it's not difficult enough to drive Sabretooth's adrenaline levels into a furious rage. Because that's why Sabretooth's at the X-Mansion. He's seeking Professor X's help to help him deal with his homicidal rages and fury. But Gambit there is watching away, and he has a little scheme. So he enters the control booth of the Danger Room, and he says to Cyclops that he's got some terrible news. And Cyclops says, what could be worse than babysitting Creed? I ran into Jean and Elizabeth, and Red asked if I could take over for you. She needs you to rearrange more of the furniture we brought over to your love nest yesterday. And that we saw in issue 318 of Uncanny. So Scott says, I was wrong. There are worse things. That's his dry humour is back now, after, I think, having worked through the trauma of having sent Nathan Christopher into the future in X Factor 68. He, by virtue of the adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix, and having the opportunity to raise Nathan Christopher for a decade in the future, has probably worked through all that guilt and angst, and he's got his old dry sense of humour back. So anyway, he heads off, and Gambit then starts messing with the control panel of the up in the booth. We see the engage written in there, and he's set the danger room program sequence to 120. Critical force activated, safety parameters disengaged. So everything is there going at Creed in the danger room, and he's taken by surprise. And then we've got an interlude. We've got a couple of interludes in this issue. And this first one, we haven't seen this character since X-Men number 13. That's volume 2. And it's Hazard. Remember him? Carter Reiking. And he's got a visitor at the minimum security prison in New Mexico where he's being held. And this guy's name is Adam. And he says he's looking for someone who briefly knew your father a long, long time ago. His name was Milbury. Now, Mr. Milbury is an alias of Mr. Sinister. So, what is going on here? And Hazard, or Carter Reiking, puts Adam onto Charles Xavier for more information on the mysterious Mr. Milbury. And also that puts Mr. Sinister into the same age group as Professor X's father as well, which is interesting, Brian Xavier. And speaking of Professor X, here he is. He gets his own little segment. And this picks up on Banshee's decision in issue 316. That was part 1 of the Phalanx Covenant, where he blew up Professor X's ready room and all of its data banks as well, so the Phalanx couldn't download it. So he's cleaning up here with Bishop, and Bishop is asking him, is there no way at all to retrieve what was lost? And Professor X says, there's only one option I'm aware of, and he'd rather avoid it, and it's this character here, Comcast. So this guy showed up in the Deadpool miniseries, and his ability makes him the electronic equivalent of a telepath of the highest order. So he may have the data that was lost. So Nicieza setting up the possibility of Professor X retrieving that data down the road via this character. And Professor X explains that the reason there was no backup was because he didn't want to endanger the mutants who were on file, who didn't want to be contacted any further by him. They wanted to remain anonymous, as well as members of his Mutants Underground as well. So that's why he didn't back it up. Great anchor image here of Bishop by Kubert and Matthew Ryan. And then we've got interlude number 2, and this is the setup for Legion Quest. So Legion here is looking at, and because Legion is in a coma, has been in a coma, has been in effect brain dead since Uncanny X-Men 280, we do get some narrative captions here. They glisten in the flashing light of his maddened mind, dazzling crystal figurines, so clear, so clean, so perfect, the stuff of which dreams are made. Dreams of love and harmony, hope and unity, the dreams his father once had. So this is David Haller, and he is in an intensive care ward in one of the best hospitals in Tel Aviv, but his mind is elsewhere, with a woman long dead. This is Destiny. So Legion, under the control of the Shadow King, killed Destiny in issue 255 of Uncanny X-Men. And Destiny had a dream of the future with all the figures, all the characters in it in crystal. And that was in issue 254. So Nicieza, doing his homework here and calling all the way back to issues 254 and 255. Issues he would have looked at when he was correcting his mistake in relation to established canon regarding Psylocke's transformation at the via the hand and Matsuo Tsurayaba. So getting something extra out of that rereading of those issues by Claremont. And Destiny in the dream, or whatever it is, says to David, David, your dream is a good one. I saw it long ago. And perhaps the world may yet awaken to see it come true. If only years ago, your father had been given a real chance to fulfill his own dream. But dreams are fragile things, aren't they, boy? So easily shattered. Who knows, David? If the dream comes true, if the dream arises, perhaps redemption is not far off, and he rises, he awakens from his coma and says, come back, tell me what you mean. Dreams fade, nightmares, they tend to linger. So something is being set up there and will get explored in coming months. And then we pick up with Sabretooth, and he is having a hard time of it in the danger room. These things are trying to kill me, he says. Good, I like it that way. So his adrenaline is rushing. And Gambit enters the danger room and says that Cyclops had nothing to do with your special exercise, Creed. So Creed there at LeBeau, with a sucker attack like that, should have known it would be you. So they have this history together going all the way back to when when Gambit was only 17 on that adventure in Paris that was retold in issue 334 of this volume of X-Men, volume 2. So they're having some back and forth there, and then we turn this to the side. Just make sure you can see all of that. So now they fight. So we've been waiting for this to see adult Gambit taking on Sabretooth, but of course Sabretooth is wearing that muzzle and he's wearing those manacles over his hands, so he is in a sense handicapped, and we got to bear that in mind here in terms of Gambit getting the best of Sabretooth in this fight. So we have this huge anchor image of him standing over Sabretooth, standing on his back and pointing this modified bow staff right at his, as he says, his thick skull. Great use of magenta there as well. The colours here are by Kevin Summers. I like the reflection of the light from the bow staff on Gambit's face. This kind of rim lighting that goes down this right side of his body. It's really great work on this page, and I love the silhouetted out figures here in this particular panel. It's good work, it's good stuff. Yeah, nice. And he doesn't, of course, put the bow staff that was modified for him by the Beast through Sabretooth's head, because he says that'd be giving Sabretooth exactly what he wanted. And instead he says, best way to beat you down, Creed, and to beat you up. I work too hard, care too much about being here, learning how to love for real and being an X-Man, to let a loser like you take it away from me. So I know the best way to win the fight against you is for me and Rogue to be happy together. So Rogue overhears that and says, is that a fight we can win? It's a great shot of her coming in the doorway, and again those new Kubert eyes as well, doing it differently from Jim Lee. Got his own way of doing it. So Gambit says that he didn't know that she was there listening, and how much did she overhear? Did he or didn't he know that she was there? I mean, he is a thief and should be aware of his surroundings that bit better, but maybe the fight with Sabretooth impacted on his ability to overhear her coming up behind him. And she says, Gambit, I also know that you and I won't ever work right until we both accept what we've done in our lives. And when's that going to happen? He asks her. Soon, she hopes, because she can't run anymore from who she was if it means she keeps running from who she wants to be. And that's a setup for the coming Rogue limited series. I have those issues, all 4 issues of the limited series. If you're interested in me reviewing that, let me know in the comments. There's just something I missed here in the back and forth between Gambit and Sabretooth that I want to point out, where Sabretooth goads him and says, what are you afraid of, boy? Me spilling something more sinister? What I done is working, ain't it? So that reference is more breadcrumbing for an upcoming revelation regarding Gambit and his own dark past. And that is going to factor into whether Rogue and Gambit have an easy road of it as a couple as well. And then we pick up with Iceman, who gets his own little segment here, and he's kind of transformed into a spikier looking character. It looks like he's aping the Beast's physiognomy there, or a little bit like Wolverine, because it's what he wants to be. He wants to be tougher, more dangerous, but he's feeling sorry for himself. And here we get Beast explaining the work he's been doing on the legacy virus, how there's 3 species now, or 3 mutations. He's called them 1, 2, and 3. And he also explains how the legacy virus now can affect humans too. So Strife's legacy fulfilled, hatred and death to all. But Iceman here is just thinking about himself and asks, Hank, am I a loser? So Beast realizes he's going to have to pay some attention to Bobby now, and says, did my ears perchance mishear? Of course you're not. So Bobby continues with his misery pity party. I'm a lame excuse for a human being, and as Emma Frost so painfully pointed out to everyone, as a mutant too. But Beast demurs and says, au contraire, my friend, what matters a teensy epidemic in light of a friend's self-pitying doubt? Come, let us sally forward. I've given 3 weeks of my life to this viroid. I can give at least 3 hours to my bestest little buddy. So, Iceman, quick bite at Harry's hideaway then, Skipper. Better yet, Gilligan, how about a slow dinner with dessert and coffee afterwards? Sounds great. So they've got a date, but Bobby there, you going to pick up the tab? He's got no money. So we're to the epilogue, bookending. The trio are outside looking at the new sign that Emma Frost paid for and had set up, the Xavier Institute for Higher Learning. And Scott says, funny finding you here again, sir. Bishop mentions the problems in the ready room. Is it possible to start all over again with your database, Charles? So he says no, but he's never felt quite so hopeful of the future and our place in it. But he asks himself, am I deluding myself, or does our goal actually stand a chance of coming true? His dream of peaceful coexistence between humans and mutants? And Jean says, of course it does, Charles, and it will, it has to. Although when we do succeed, what are we all going to do for jobs? You know, says bald Professor X, I always fancied the chance to become something simpler in life, perhaps a barber. So the title of the story was Smoke and Mirrors. Tale of the X-Men, brought to us by Fabian Nicieza, writer, Andy Kubert, penciler, Matt Ryan, inks, Bill Oakley, letters, and Kevin Summers, color art. And then there's a special thanks to the research assistants, and that I think has to do with all of the technical language regarding viruses. So I really enjoyed this issue. I thought it was a great, quiet issue. Nice motifs of the headings with the spot illustrations of the characters, and getting that kind of character developments going on between these big event stories. So I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on X-Men number 38. If you did, please like the video on YouTube, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.